The second question, how to manage money supply. That's some, this is a very difficult question. I don't know if I can answer it or not. But again, at least we can, and for the time being, we have to take it step by step. Even if we think printing money is not a good idea, again, we have to take it step by step. Of course, there are several views on that. So not all Muslim economists would say that printing money or fiat money is not acceptable from Islamic point of view. But they all agree. They all agree that money is a very essential element in the economy, and therefore it has to be carefully managed and carefully directed for economic purposes. Everybody agrees on this. So if the Sukuk market is still small, okay, we can gradually take it step by step. Then the key word here is gradualism. We take it step by step. Now, Dr. Habib has pointed to this issue of Islamic industry. In reality, Islamic industry is, well, more or less moving in the same direction, at least before the crisis, of the conventional industry. This is true. I fully agree with that. Unfortunately, these tawarruq structures, they create the same inverted debt pyramid structure. You have one good, one car, or one kilo of rice or metal or whatever commodity used for tawarruq. The same exact commodity is used to finance hundreds and hundreds of customers, and therefore to create several thousands of worth of the commodity value itself. The commodity value might cost only 100, but you are able to generate from this same exact good hundreds of thousands and millions of debt. But this is the inverted pyramid structure. How can an Islamic instrument create the inverted debt pyramid? It cannot. So this is, the crisis just gave us another proof that these instruments are un-Islamic in spirit. True, contractually, you can play with these contracts any way you like. But then ultimately, you end up with the same inverted debt pyramid structure. So economically and ultimately, they have the same impact of riba, which is multiplication of debt. لا تأكل الربا أضعافا مضاعفة. So the main danger of riba is multiplication of debt. But all these tawarruq structures, they end up with multiplication of debt. Because how to know, how to measure if debt is multiplied or not? By the base wealth value. If debt is several multiples of the base wealth, that's the same problem for riba. If we start from a single good and we create several multiples of the value of this good in debt, that means we are ending up with the same exact problem and danger of riba. So I think this is a good opportunity to look again into the, and by the way, this tawarruq and reverse tawarruq is a crucial factor for this mismatch of assets and liabilities. Because those banks, what they would do, they would, on the assets, they would create debts through tawarruq, organized tawarruq or banking tawarruq. And on the liabilities, they would borrow using reverse tawarruq. So now they are able to borrow short and lend long and end up with the same exact problem and fragility of the conventional system. And that's why you are hearing in the news so many banks at the Gulf are facing this crisis, because they are getting into the same fragility structure, the fragile structure of a conventional bank, borrowing short and lending long. Now, of course, in a pure Islamic structure, you might have some kind of mismatch, but not in that manner, not in that magnitude, obviously. So again, I hope that this crisis would give us an opportunity to revise these instruments, these dubious and very questionable instruments that would just make Islamic finance more or less indistinguishable from conventional finance. Okay, this would answer. I hope I tried to
Thank you,
answer
Dr.
the
Sami.
question.
May we have questions now from Imam Awza University, Beirut?
Yes, we have two questions, please. Are you hearing me? From Lebanon.
Please proceed.
We have two questions, please.
Please proceed.
Okay, so good morning and thank you very much, Dr. Sami, for the insightful presentation. My name is Professor Rima Turk Aris from the Lebanese American University, and I would like to comment on whether we are still going to replicate the commercial banking structures versus an opportunity that's presenting it to ourselves, which is conveying new governing principles for the new financial architecture. Now, as we are all well aware now, the structures are being rewritten governing the financial architecture, whether they are rewritten now independently in the States, in the UK with the Turner Review, the ECB is writing its own rule, the BIS, everybody is working in the shadow now to try to rework the overall financial architecture. And now there is an opportunity for us to grab this opportunity and to give new principles that ought to be govern the financial order. And specifically, I'd like to say that there are two major ideas that you went over in your presentation that we need to convey to the international communities. The first one is that we need to make the distinction between speculation and gambling on the one hand and investing activities. Of course, this is also a distinction that's made in conventional finance. So what I'm proposing is that we stress on the areas of that overlap between Islamic finance and what's the other areas that conventional finance plays. And conventional finance also says, well, there is a huge gap between investing activities and speculating and gambling, for example. And we can also say that on Islamic finance, of course, gambling and speculation are prohibited, whereas investing is eulogized. And when we speak about investing, we also need to stress about, again, the need to link the debt to the underlying cash flows that are generated by the asset, which is financed by the debt. So the moment we distinguish between gambling and speculation on the one hand and investing activities, then we are closer in spirit to the Islamic financial principles. The second item we need to focus on, if we are able to communicate our message to the international community, is that we need to incorporate a social and ethical dimension into finance. And whatever we have witnessed over the past few months is that this social and ethical dimension is absolutely missing from the Western mode of finance. We've seen it with the Bernard Madoff scandal. We have seen it with the AIG bonuses and with the outrage. So all of this ethical dimension by default is missing. And everybody is outraged because this is missing. So we also see an opportunity to add this ethical and social dimension, and it's exactly in line of what you talked about, the forbearance system that we need also to have instilled in the new system. So what I'm trying to say here is now there is an opportunity that we need to grab. There is going to be an overhaul of the overall financial system, the overall architecture. So we need to convey a strong message. If at least, as you said, we have to start bit by bit. We cannot just ask for a revolution all of a sudden. But these are basic principles that would lead to the avoidance of gharar and riba. But instead of shedding the light on gharar and riba, we can shed the light on these other aspects, like one, separate investing from speculation and gambling, and two, incorporate a social and ethical dimension into your financial systems, because we have seen that financial systems can disrupt the whole and the real economy. So this leads me to my next proposition. The upcoming G20 meeting in London on April 2nd is very close, and Saudi Arabia is of course a member of the G20. Is there a channel through which our voice is going to be heard? The financial architecture is on the agenda. The Europeans are going to put it on the agenda. The US is looking for more stimulus, rewarding those who led us here, as you said, rewarding those too big to fail, increasing moral hazard. The Europeans have another agenda, which is the need to reform the financial architecture. We have members on the G20 that can speak for us. Are our voices going to be heard? Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Ayman Korek, a student in Beirut Arab University from Lebanon. My question is, what Islamic instrumental tools or actions could Islamic Arab world countries use now before we go straight to similar problems as USA faced? And I want to ask about the timing of the crisis happened. Why it's now? Why it wasn't before? Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's all.
Thank you very much for your very enlightening and enthusiastic comments and questions. I definitely agree. We don't have to use the term riba and the term gharar. Of course, there is no need to use these particular terms. We can simply, as you have Dr. Reem rightly pointed out, we can use the distinction between gambling and speculation on one hand and investment on the other. This is definitely true. And even we can move a step forward and say that we require rating agencies and we require all financial institutions never to hold any kind of asset that is below, for example, C rating or the equivalent of C rating. So we have to review the whole rating system. The rating system, the structure now allows banks and hedge funds and anyone to hold these toxic assets. We have to eliminate these toxic assets from the economy. We shall not have these toxic assets anymore. So we have to put a requirement in the regulations that no financial institution whatsoever, whether regulated or not regulated, is allowed to hold any asset that is more likely to lose and therefore belongs to the toxic area. This is definitely, I fully agree that we can use this. And by the way, they all are talking about this. They all realize, if you read Martin Wolf article in the Financial Times a couple of days ago, he was reviewing this Turner review that has been distributed. And they mentioned casino. Even if you go to the Turner review, they call it casino banking. They distinguish between utility banking and casino banking. We have already seen CNN calling CDS market the largest casino in the world. They already know. See, the problem that they don't have, I don't know, they need, as Gordon Brown has said, it might take a crisis to wake those people up and give them the incentive to change the system. Without this shock, it might have been very difficult just to change the system. So this is a good, it's not a good event. Of course, the crisis is something bad for everyone, but this is a good opportunity to change the system. Again, the ethical dimension, true, we can include this and call for enacting forbearance, non-profit institutions get the support. I fully agree, and as you have seen, there are already studies in the West that show the great impact of these non-profit institutions. I fully agree with you. Now with the G20, let me assure you that first, the representatives of these Islamic countries, whether Indonesia or Saudi Arabia, they have already been communicated, contacted, and encouraged to put the Islamic finance on the agenda. That's number one. Number two, even the other countries, they know very well Islamic finance. It is not that they are ignorant or they have never heard of it. No, they know it, and they know how to know about it. Even if there are some aspects that they don't know, they know how to get the information. The Treasury, the US Treasury, held a seminar in November last year about Islamic finance. The European, there was a meeting a month ago or so, and there was a representative from the European Central Bank, and surprisingly, that representative knew more of Islamic finance than maybe the average person in the street here in Jeddah. So I was very surprised how this official from the European Central Bank got this background. So they know Islamic finance. It's not that they don't know it. You know very well that the UK has already changed their laws to attract Islamic funds. So they know it very well. They know it very well, and they know how to get the information needed. But of course, that doesn't mean we shall not act. We shall act. But with the assumption that they already know. And therefore, we have to move beyond the issue of just informing others and move to the stage of proposing specific details, structures, institutions, regulation, etc., that would help prevent this crisis from coming again.